Shalom family, in the last video we talked about my relationship with my ex, me learning what biblical adultery is, and a little bit about what biblical polygyny is. Now at the end of that video I said that this next video was going to be talking about me joining a cult only 2 weeks later. However, I'm going to have to put a pause on that video because the Holy Spirit said I have to talk about my journey in Freemasonry before I do that video. So this video will be about how I became a Master Mason at only 22 years old. So stay tuned for this episode of One Stop Shop.
Break it. The red pill brought me out of the matrix, so I see it off of what it is.
Alright, all praise to the Most High Yah. Welcome to the One Stop Shop. I'm your host, Rock. Today we're going to be talking about Freemasonry. Now, this is part 4 of my testimony on how I became a believer, how I came into the truth, right? And so for a lot of these videos, I'm only scratching the surface on the knowledge that the Most High has given me on a lot of these topics because I don't want to get too deep and these videos be too long. So once he releases me from completing the testimony series, then I plan on expanding on each one of these topics a little bit more in detail. So anyway, today, like I said, we're going to talk about Freemasonry. So how did I become a Master Mason at 22 years old? Well, we have to go back. So when I was younger, I remember hearing that my great-grandfather was a Master Mason when he was alive and how impactful he was in our family. He's like our family's patriarch. And so he's somebody that I always modeled myself into wanting to be like for the family, to look up to as the head of a family, to be able to run a family, have a successful business, and provide for his family. And so naturally, being younger, I was like, okay, well, he was a Master Mason. And my father at the time also said, the Masons, Freemasons, you can have a lot of connections. It's a brotherhood all around the world. It's literally the biggest fraternity, to my knowledge, in the world. So at 21, 22 years old, I was at Hampton University, and I remember one of the OGs up in the library where I used to work at, we started talking about Freemasonry. And I didn't know too much about Freemasonry at the time, but he was a Freemason. He told me, hey, in order to be a Mason, you have to ask. He didn't tell me before, he told me after I'd already asked, because that's just the way that the Masons do it. They don't ask somebody to be a Mason. You have to come and approach them and say, hey, I'm interested in that. I don't remember how I knew or found out he was a Mason. It might have been a ring. It might have been through conversation or whatever, but I found out he was a Mason, piqued my interest because, hey, the patriarch in my family, he was a Mason, and I'd heard great things about Masons up until that time. So I was, intrigued and wanted to know what I needed to do in order to become a member. He then told me to go study. He said, go research Prince Hall, go research the history of the Freemasonic order and how they came to be. And, at that time I was still a senior in college. I still had, I wasn't as deep as I am now. I was very shallow when I was in college. I was more deep actually when I was in high school than I was when I went to college, right? All the drinking and smoking and lustful things, just ways of the world, it catches up to you over time and your brain pays a price for it. So anyway, I did a little surface level research on who Prince Hall was and who the Freemasons were, and I came back to him and told him, yeah, I've done my research and I do want to move forward with this. He said, okay. And he connected me with one of the brothers that was up in the Newport News area of Virginia, right? And so went to that brother's house and sat down, found out he went to Hampton as well, and we just started connecting, bonding. We didn't talk about too much about the Freemasons at that time, or at least in the beginning of the conversation, I would say. He just wanted to get to know me. So as he got to know me, see who I was, the type of man that I am, then he put my phone on airplane mode. Then he began to tell me a little bit about his walk in the Freemasons. And so, I was just listening, taking it all in, a little bit in awe. Oh, wow, like you can do this. And, oh, yeah, this is the type of privilege that we have. In every city I remember him saying in every city, there's a Freemasonic lodge. And now looking back, that's very interesting. But they're everywhere. So, at least in America, I would say. In every city in America, there's a Freemasonic lodge, he said. And nonetheless, he kept telling me more and more about the privileges of being a Freemason. One of the privileges that really stood out to me was he showed me this passport. It was this blue card, and he was like, hey, as a Freemason, there's certain things that you can say in order to get out of certain situations. For instance, I've been pulled over by cops. I was speeding one time and got pulled over. If you've been to Virginia, that Commonwealth state, man, they love pulling you over. That place, man, save that for another day. Go the speeding limit in Virginia. Don't speed. They will pull you over in a heartbeat. So he was speeding and got pulled over by a cop. And cop was like, hey, regular stuff. Why you going so fast? He was like, I was just traveling east. I'm a traveling man, woo, woo, woo. He said a few things. Again, a lot of that stuff is the Most High is white from my memory. But I remember he said, because that's Freemason terminology, traveling. I believe he was like, I'm traveling east. Yeah, I'm headed to the light. And so the police officer picked up on what he was saying, and, he showed him his passport. And he was like, okay, he saw the passport. He was like, okay, do me a favor, just slow down. Police officer let him go. Because the police officers are in on this too. They're higher ups. They're telling them, hey, watch out for this. If you pull somebody over that has something like this, let them go. It's a brotherhood. If you go to court, he told me another instance when he went to court and he stood in a certain way. There's a stance that a Master Mason has, which is ironically the same stance that we have in the military when we stand at attention. They call it standing on your square, right? And he stood in this stance and he said a few things that the judge was able to pick up on, and the judge recognized that he was a Mason, and the judge himself was also a Mason. And so the judge dismissed the case and he was able to go free. So, there's a lot of worldly, fleshly perks that you get by joining these worldly, fleshly organizations. So just hearing that though, at 22, not in the word, not spiritual at the time. At this time, I was already in my studies of flat earth and hollow earth and all this. I'm closer to the end of that where I'm like, okay, I know that the earth is flat. Like I'm picking up on that part. So, but I haven't gone over to the Bible yet. So I'm hearing all this and I'm like, wow, like that's really cool. That's power. When you're you love power. What is that? That's power right there. That's the reason why so many people were in awe of the Messiah, was the power that he had even over the demons, right? You make the demons flee. Like, okay, that's power right there. So after that, he was like, okay, we're going to go ahead and start your initiation. And they pretty much had to fast track me because of the amount of time that I had before I was going to graduate and go back home to Los Angeles. And so they wanted to make sure that they put me on the right way. They wanted to make sure that I knew the Freemason ways through them. Now, this wasn't a Prince Hall Lodge. This was a Scottish Rite Lodge. Most black people, African Americans, melanin people do the Prince Hall Lodge because Prince Hall was a melanin man. However, Prince Hall has no standing really. When you get to the higher lodges, you have to eventually cross over to Scottish Rite anyway. So this was a bunch of brothers in a Scottish Rite Lodge, all black lodge. I went there, got put on there. I think it was Kings of Judah, number 7 or something like that, out of Newport News. Yay, me, I'm exposing everything. That's who I am. That's what the Most High told me to do. Not to hold back. We're exposing everything. The only thing I won't do is name some people's names that I know might not want to be exposed yet, or I didn't get permission to, so, but everything else I'm exposing, so anyway, All praise to the Most High. Started the initiation, and you enter as an apprentice. You know, they have their signs, penal signs. I remember him telling me, like, yeah, you start telling these secrets in Freemason, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna slit your throat, take your tongue out and out of your mouth and throw it because you're telling our secrets. And that's one of their signs, you know, is when they pass each other, you might see somebody with a Freemason hat on. They might do it real quick, do something like that. That's Freemason. And I remember him saying that, like, oh wow, this is serious. Like, okay, I'm not supposed to tell anything. I'm not supposed to talk about this stuff because there's penalties for this. And they would drive each one of these penalties home. Right? So into the lodge, you come in, there's a worshipful master who's pretty much like the god of the lodge, the father of the whole thing. And you know, you have to turn in certain ways and make certain gestures, and I'll put everything up on the screen. The apprentice, right? That's what the apprentice looks like. And then you go through that initiation. Then you study. You have a book you're supposed to read. Study. You know, you learn about Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff is found in 1 Kings. When they talk about Solomon, I believe it might be 14, around there, 13, 14. Hiram Abiff is, you know, in those chapters. However, the Freemasons make Hiram Abiff out to be this just messiah of their fraternity, when Hiram Abiff is only in like 2 chapters in the whole Bible, right? But they try to, of course, intertwine their beliefs with the Bible. So let's keep going. Peace, family. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. This video is sponsored by The Healing Cup, a holy tea company, a sister in the faith that has started a organization in order to educate believers and those outside of the community about how important it is to take care of our vessels. If you like tea the same way that I do, then please go over to their website and buy a packet of Inner Peace. As I always say, I'm biased. That's my favorite. And support our sister in the faith. We are all one body of Christ. Let's support each other. All praise the Most High. Now let's get back to the show. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, I could go a lot deeper on a lot of these topics. However, in order to keep the video short, I'm going to pass over a few things that took place, and I'm going to mention them later down the road in another video. However, I did go from apprentice, I went to fellowcraft, and I became a master mason in this lodge in Newport News, Virginia. And it was me and another brother at the time. We were going through this, and one of the things that I really remember is the master mason ceremony, when we were blindfolded and we had what's called a cable tow, and we were connected with one another. And the Bible says, be equally yoked, be not yoked to those that are not equal to you. You know, and so this is a spiritual tie that's taking place. You know, when both of us were yoked up pretty much. Even in the Divine Nine fraternities, they talk about yoking up with one another, and these are your brothers and everything. Well, these are spiritual ties that are taking place. And so I had to break and denounce these ties when I came into the truth. However, when I was there, I remember going through this whole thing and we were blindfolded. I remember them taking us around the room and they were enacting each and every penalty of what would happen if we were to tell the secrets of Freemasonry. From the apprentice, where they would slit our throats and take our tongues out, right, to the fellowcraft, where they would blast our chest open with a mallet. Like, these are real things that are being practiced in Freemasonry. To the last one, the master mason, they would cut our bowels, like cut our stomach open and let our bowels fall out. You know, so they're enacting all these things on us. You know, we're going around the room. I also remember being like on my knees at a certain point, and the Bible open, almost at like this altar, and the Bible was open, and they had different Bible verses for each level that we were on. You know, and I remember like they're like, kiss the book. The kissing the Bible was like a whole like little hazing thing that we did. Nothing crazy, but yeah, we had to go through all that, and then at the end they put us in like a tomb. I remember them laying us back after we had gone through all the different penalties of each and every level, and them laying us back into this tomb-like thing, right? Again, we're blindfolded, but each and every level has a different hand gesture. And I've come across people throughout my life and after being a Mason, and I can tell that they're Masons just by where they put their thumbs on my different levels of my hand. So when you're laying back in there, they're like, okay, what's the apprentice? You're doing all these different ones, and then they finally teach you the last grip, right? And I think it's like the lion's claw, because none of them work. They all slide off, and then finally you have to do the lion's grip, and that's like, I believe, like the master grip, or I don't remember, but I remember having to do this grip in the end. And so they pull us up out of the tomb, and they say, look down. And we look down at our feet, and our feet are on a square. We're standing in the square position, and so, they're like, you stand on your square, blase, blase, blase. They continue the initiation, and, that's essentially it. Now you're a Mason. I received the passport that brother had, and, I remember just going outside. We were all just chopping it up afterwards, and them telling how they serve the community and how they do this, that, and the other, and that was pretty much it in terms of the initiation process from apprentice, fellow craft, and master Mason. You had to continue to study and learn different things throughout that initiation process, but, it wasn't anything crazy like how the divine iron gets, but that's a whole other topic for a whole nother day. However, they get a lot of the practices from the Freemasons. The Freemasons has been around for a very long time. You can trace it back to the Knights Templar and before. I ended up going back to LA, head back to the coast, and I continue my studies. I'm still in Flat Earth, still doing stuff, still chopping up with the bros there. I did a quick pass through to Atlanta. I met a brother out in Atlanta that was a Freemason, and he was telling me about different stuff. And it's very interesting how much people really believe that they know until you come into the truth. There's a difference between being woke and being awake. I'm very awake now, spiritually awake. I was woke back then. I was Black Lives Matter, and I thought I was spiritual because I was in all this new age stuff. Nah, I didn't know what I was doing. I was messing around with some real serious stuff though. And like I said, I had to denounce, and I had to break these soul ties like that cable toe. I had to denounce and tell them, like, nah, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself though. So get back to LA, doing what I do, studying Flat Earth, came into the Bible through that. Now I'm learning who I am. That's like September, going through everything. So by December 2018, I am like, okay, Freemasons are not of God. I had to swear an oath to this. And when you look at every aspect of society and where you have to swear an oath to, it's always to gain some sort of fame, notoriety, or some sort of power on this plane, right? The Bible tells us not to swear oaths. We are not to do this. We're supposed to let our yea be yea and let our nay be nay. However, when you study doctors, they have to take a Hippocratic oath in order to be a doctor, right? You could be a nurse, you could be a holistic practitioner, but in order to be a doctor in this Babylonian system, you have to take an oath to their gods. And if you've ever read the Hippocratic Oath, or if you haven't, I'll put it up here on this screen. They are taking an oath to an entirely different god. Like I said, you could be a nurse. You don't have to be a doctor, but if you want to serve in their system and make that type of money under Big Pharma, you better take that oath. Same thing for lawyers. If you want to be a lawyer, you could be a paralegal. You could be a private lawyer, attorney in fact. However, if you want to be an attorney at law and have their bar registration and be a part of their society, you're going to have to take that oath. Lastly, me, when I was in the military, right? In order for me to be an Army officer, I had to take an oath in order to lead, in order to make more money than a regular soldier. I could have just come out of high school and joined the military and I would have been a soldier, I didn't have to go take an oath in order to be an Army officer. But I did, and I had to denounce that and separate from that because we're not supposed to take oaths. All right, so when I get back to LA, I tell him, hey, the guy that brought me in, the brother that I sat down with that one night and we chopped it up and he was telling me all the different things that you could get from being a Freemason, I had to tell him, I was like, hey, look, because they kept blowing my phone up. They were calling me, hey, when are you coming back out to Newport News? We got this community thing going on, and brother, you knew you got to come out and show your face and woo, woo, woo. I'm like, yo, check it. I'm not with it anymore. I denounce. I don't want to do this. I've come into the truth. I now know who the Most High Yah is. I know who I serve. No man can serve two masters. So I am now denouncing my membership with the Masonic Order. And so I remember him saying, he texted me back and he was like, LOL, you will always be one of us. And I was like, okay. I didn't text back after that. I didn't text back, but I always remember that text. Like, you're pretty much like, nah, we own you. You're always gonna be ours. It was like the devil was in him saying that, yeah, you're always gonna be ours. So fast forward, I'm fully in the truth now. Now I'm going to the summer of next year, summer 2019. I'm down in Fort Gordon. I'm at Basic Officer Leadership Course, BOLIC. That's something that each and every officer has to take after they commission, right? So I commissioned. Now it's time to go to BOLIC, go to Signal. I was Signal Corps, 25 Alpha. So I'm down in Fort Gordon, now called Fort Eisenhower in Augusta, Georgia. I'm there. I'm top of the class. And I mean number 1 out of 72. I had a PT score of 307 at that time. I was the executive officer. Like, I was top dog. However, one night I got pulled over by Georgia State Patrol. My fault. I take accountability. I was going 70 in a 45. Didn't know it was a 45. I believe it was Fort Gordon Highway, and up closer to the base, it's 55 miles an hour, and I was trying to speed through this yellow light. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was trying to just get back to base, and I pressed the gas trying to get through a yellow light. Ended up getting clocked at 70 out of 45 because I was closer to downtown Augusta. So he pulled me over, and if you know anything about traffic stops, their main goal is to escalate it to a drug bust or a DUI. And I didn't know that. I've learned a lot more about the law recently, but pulled me over, had my ex in the car with me at the time, and he ended up arresting me for a DUI. I had done every single test. We were outside. I've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning, PT. Been out, now it's 2:30 in the morning, and I'm outside doing all this and all that. And the reason why he arrested me was because he asked me if I wanted to take a breathalyzer test. And in the state of Georgia, you cannot refuse to take a breathalyzer test. And the way I responded to this officer was, dang, man, do I have to? I've walked in the line. I've held my leg out. You didn't check my eyes. Like, do I have to do this? You can tell that I'm good to go. I'm 5 minutes from the base, man. I'm right up here. And he was like, nah, man, you don't have to. I'm like, all right, thank you. I got my girl in the car, like, okay, thank you. He was like, put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, nah, we're good. I'll take the test. Like, I'm not tripping. He's like, no, you don't get to pick and choose. Put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest. So at this time, he arrested me. Now, I could have pulled that Freemason passport stuff. I could have said, I know what to say. But it was pretty much a test of faith. Okay, what side are you on? Are you on this side? Or are you still, if you get hemmed up, are you gonna, go back to that side? You 1 foot in, 1 foot out with it. And so I didn't do any of that. I was just like, okay. And then he tried to do a blood test, which I later found out is because a blood test is when they know you haven't been drinking recently, but they want to see if you have any alcohol in your system for a long period of time. Say you may have drank earlier in the day, so they do a blood test. You know, he knew I was good to go. If he thought I was drunk, my attorney was like, he would have taken you down to the base and had you do the breathalyzer at the police station. So he knew you weren't that drunk. The second one is the urine test. That lasts for like a few hours, but the blood test, if you have any liquor in your system for a long period of time, it'll show. So he tried to do a blood test, in which I said, nah, I don't want to do that. I was like, am I going to go to jail? He's like, yeah, you're going to go to jail regardless. And that's when I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm good. Just take me to jail, bro. So then I had to wait for the MPs to come. They got me out, and the next day, went back to base. Now everybody on base knows that Wright got arrested. All the other white officers are saying that, oh yeah, he was probably selling drugs or something. He's probably a gangbanger. You know, people that smile in your face, they'd be the first ones to talk behind your back, you know? So I went back. You know, I took it on the chin. Captain Cayley, I told him everything that happened. I was like, check the tape. I was telling everybody, check the tape. Check the tape. Pull the police tape. It'll show that what really happened. Nonetheless, I got stripped from my position, humiliated publicly. But that's part of the walk, you know? The Messiah said himself, you know, they're going to persecute you the same way that they persecute me. So consider it an honor. At that time, it didn't feel like an honor. At that time, it felt very much so like, this sucks, bro. Because my goal was to go active duty. My goal, not yours. My goal was to go active duty. At that time, I was on track to go to Ranger school. I would have been a Ranger. I would have been active duty. Hua, all that. He didn't see fit that I go that route. And then when I look back, it's like, wow, had I gone active duty the way that I wanted to, I would have had to eventually come to blows with that COVID vaccine, in which he knew I wasn't going to take. But I would not have had an alternative plan. How would this have gone? But my account got flagged, my status got flagged, and I wasn't able to go active duty, and I had to figure it out, had to make it shake from there. Had to work some warehouse jobs up to the point he blessed me with the job in January of 2020. And now that brings us back to date of May 2020, where I broke up with my ex in the last video and then joined the cult 2 weeks later. So that is it. That wraps everything up for this video. Again, it's been a walk. It has been a walk, man. And persecution is just a part of it. I give all praises to the Most High, and just talking about this it brings back a lot of stuff that I'm like, wow, I really went through all of this to get where I'm at now, and I have not even really started. This is just the beginning, because in this next video, when I speak of this cult, and this cult is currently being exposed as we speak, and from what some sources have told me, even the FBI has started looking into them a little bit, which I'm not surprised because of the pastor and how vocal he gets with being in Babylon and going against the system. I'm not surprised that the FBI is now aware of the things that are taking place in Straightway Truth Ministries under the leadership of Charles Dowell, aka Pastor Dowell. But that wraps up my journey of Freemasonry and how I came to the knowledge that Freemasonry is not of the Father. Hey, go buy your packet of inner peace, because Lord knows we all need it. Anyway, Peace to you all. See you on Judgment Day.
Break it. The red pill brought me out of the matrix, so I see it off for what it is.